Now you raised it up, Rob. I can hear it.
Okay, maybe if I moved the thing closer here. There we go. Just got it. My kids ran around with the other one and destroyed it.
I don't know if that's too high, but that certainly increased your volume. It's right up there.
All right, if it's too loud, let me know. I wanted to finish answering that question real quick here about the trackers, how that looks to the parents. So the way that's shared is via our daily or weekly activity report, which is an option that you have available to turn on or to turn off. So the activity report contains the academic info as far as what lessons occurred today. And then it encourages the optional trackers. So things, this is examples, again, the diaper changes and the naps and meals and things like that. So if this tracker category is shared with the parents, anything you track in that category would then be sent out via this activity report. So, and you can comment on it as well. So things like the meals, I ate some today, and I enjoyed my sandwich and my juice box, but I didn't like my apple slices. So you can have whatever you want there in terms of comments. You work with a lot of schools that have standardized templates. They're actual physical pieces of paper, very much geared towards younger kids. But things like for the diaper changes and the meals and the naps and things like that, and it'll be a set template. And I had a great nap today, or I took an okay nap today, or I didn't take a nap today. Whatever the case is, these items are filled out on the sheet. And the teachers will go ahead and check on it and write comments and so forth, and then they hand those pieces of paper to the parents. So that's a common thing that we've seen at some schools, and you're able to duplicate that using those trackers. So you really can cut down on the amount of paper that you're using, which obviously has a cost associated with it, and just make it a lot easier and certainly more green, environmentally friendly to go ahead and utilize the tracker system to cut back on a lot of those types of uses. So anyway, that's how that's shared with the parents. Were there additional questions, Tim?
No, I don't see any, Rob. I think we're ready to go on to the next one.
All right. Well, the next thing I want to talk about here are some of the health concerns that you may need to keep track of as an administrator here. Now, again, the tags and the tracker feature can certainly be used for those types of purposes as well. But we do provide set fields here for example, there's a box here called medication where you can go ahead and type anything you want, and you're able to report upon that. You also have allergies, and you have immunizations, and you're able to go ahead and just simply check off whatever allergy she has. This poor girl, you can go ahead and give her every allergy in the book here if you want. And then immunizations as well, and you're able to go ahead and write a comment about these as well if you would like. You're also able to customize these. So before I show you on how they report, let me actually show you how to customize them. I can go into the school profile, and I can scroll on down here, and things like immunizations. We give you the common ones. If you need to go ahead and add another one, go right ahead and add as many of these as you would like. So there's no limit to how many immunizations you might want to have. You can edit what's here. You can go ahead and do the same thing with allergies. If you have allergies that are unique to your school, or you want to get more specific on different, food allergies, or I've seen this used for religious purposes. If there's different types of, dietary requirements, you can consider them to be an allergy as well for reporting purposes. So you can go ahead and use this feature any way you see fit. And let's go back into the student's profile. Going back to our friend Maria. And again, so once you get this set up for your school, this is how you would actually input this information. Now let's go ahead and show you how you would get this information out. I'm going to go over to my reports. And the very first report happens to be allergy. So here's all of my allergy students. So it's just going to display all of my students that currently have allergies listed. I could filter the list by all classrooms, or go into an individual classroom. Tim, you might want to put yourself on mute. It's a little loud just getting some background noise. So here's all of my allergies listed right here. I can print this out if I would like. Maybe I want to go ahead and print this and hang it in the classroom or put it in a kitchen or, anywhere there, where food is served. And you can just easily have this available. So that's how you would handle the allergies. And we can scroll on down. We can do the same thing with immunizations. You can go ahead and report upon those as well. And it just gives you a list of the different immunizations. You can print those out if you would like. And then lastly, the medications. That particular field is just a text box where you can just type anything you would like. So, any comments that you would record there, you can go ahead and have these available as well, and then go ahead and print these out if you would like. So all of this information is accessible. You can have both paper copies, and you can have, obviously keep the information in Montessori Compass. So that's how you would handle some of the health-related concerns. Next, I want to move on to emergency contacts and authorized pickups. So I'm going to click on the Student's Family tab. And I believe we've discussed this before. I always go over this in our intro sessions, is that parent or guardians are users of the system. So you actually create your parents over here in the users. And we'll go ahead and create a new user. We create a parent. I put the parent's information in there, and then that parent becomes a user in the system. Now, just because they're a user doesn't mean they have access to anything. In fact, when a parent logs in, they see absolutely nothing. They basically see a nice, pretty website that has no data on it, because you actually have to attach the parent to the child. So I would go about attaching my parents in here. And I think most of you probably already know how to do that. So if we want to go ahead and attach Maria's father, George, we can go ahead and do that. And when they log in, they'll see information related to Maria and her classrooms. And I can detach as well. The school's always in full control over who can see what. We have this other field below called Extended Family. And these are going to be your emergency contacts and your authorized pickups. And so we're going to go ahead and click Add right here. And these are not users of the system. Okay, this is not mom and dad. This is going to be grandparents and neighbors and friends, aunts and uncles, and anybody else that you would like to go ahead and have affiliated with the student's profile, but they're not going to be interacting with Montessori Compass. They're not going to log in. They don't need to have a user account. So if I want to give this person a name, an email address, whatever information I want to keep in here, but the important thing is to go ahead and to tag them as either an emergency contact or an authorized pickup. So if I go ahead and I check the boxes for each of those, this person is now going to be an approved emergency contact or an authorized pickup, and I am able to run reports based on that information. So click back on the Family tab here. We can see that we have one already in here for Susan Alvarez, and I can edit her information, or I could delete as well. Now, how I would go about reporting upon that would be to go back into my backpack and click on Reports. And I'm going to scroll on down until I see my Authorized Contacts and Authorized Pickups report. And here we go. We only have a couple of them in here for our students, but you get the idea here. Maria, we have Susan listed as her emergency contact. It includes her mobile number. And we also have an authorized pickup in here. If they had multiple emergency contacts or pickups, you can have as many as you would like, and they would just stack here. So you would have, if Maria had 5 emergency contacts, you'd see all 5 of them on this list. And you're able to go ahead and print this out as well. So you can maybe keep something like this at the front door or in the foyer or somewhere where students are, arriving and departing, so you have easy access to this information. We've had some schools ask us if we can get photos in there for both parents and authorized pickups. That is something that we plan to do. We don't have a timetable on that, but something we're very likely to do in the not too distant future. So you would, also have the benefit of having a photo in there as well for extra security purposes. So that information is available as well for the emergency contacts and the authorized pickups. Now, there's a whole host of other reports that you're able to run as well. Let's go ahead and start with attendance. So I think everyone knows how to take attendance already. Real quick, you take your attendance in your daily dashboard. You mark someone as being present, absent, or tardy. The absent has a list of drop-down reasons right here. If you have 42 different reasons that are very precise on why a child can possibly be absent, you can add every single one of them, and they would all appear in this drop-down here. So that's a customizable area. You would customize those, by the way, back in our school profile. Click on Custom Names, and you can go ahead and add additional absence reasons. So out of the box, you get unknown vacation and illness. If I want to make changes, I go ahead and add whatever I would like to add here. So any different reasons why a child is absent right there, and then you enter that in the daily dashboard. So let's go back to our daily dashboard, and I also have an optional note here. So if the child is on vacation and they're at Disney World, that information can all be recorded. And I have my arrival and departure time here. I have my default times they're supposed to arrive and depart. I can edit these if I want to go ahead and manually change them. I also have the ability to go ahead and click on this little clock icon. I'm located on the East Coast of the U.S. It's 2:15 p.m. my local time. If I click on this little clock over here, it's going to go ahead and choose. It'll go ahead and save the current local time here. So I can go ahead and make any changes I would like to any of my attendance here. All right, so let's go into the student's profile and show you how to report on this here. So I'm going to go into Maria's profile, and we're going to go ahead and click on attendance. So here's all of her attendance information here. I can go ahead and set the date range that I'm interested in. Right now we're sorting from September 5th to July 19th. If I only want to say I'm only interested in July 2013, we'll say July 1st through July 19th. You see that we went ahead and narrowed down that, that list considerably here. You see that she's been present every day. She's a very punctual student here. Let's go ahead and mark her absent here. Go to our primary room, and let's go ahead and mark her as absent for the 15th. And we'll say that she's on vacation and she was at Disney World. All right, so let me go back to her profile. So now you see those notes have been recorded. You see on the 15th she was on vacation. She went to Disney World, and so she was not here that day. And of course she was there. You see these different times here. She showed up at 10:16 a.m. this day, and 10:30 this day, and 8:30 this day, and so forth. So you can be very precise on when the child arrives and departs. You can print this out if you would like. It'll, again, turn it into a downloadable PDF. If you need to go ahead and do that, that's available to you. And if you need to backdate attendance, you can also backdate attendance. So if I am starting using Montessori Compass in the middle of the school year, I can go ahead and backdate my attendance to go ahead and, so say I was starting in November and I wanted to backdate till the first day of school in September, I would be able to go ahead and do that and make sure that everyone is marked as present for those days as well to make sure I have accurate attendance reporting. Let's go and do our attendance report in the backpack, and we'll show you some options here. So again, you have a date range. You can filter by classrooms if you would like. So now we see the number of days present, the number of days absent, the number of days tardy, your total number of school days. Ignore Maria's column. It's a little off here, but some of these other students here, you get the idea here. Your total number of days, your total number of days present, you get percentages, and so forth. So it's a lot of information here in terms of attendance. You're able to go ahead and print this out as well, and you can download this as a spreadsheet as well. So lots of information in here about classroom attendance. Next thing I wanted to show you are birthdays. So obviously we have a date of birth for the child here. So there's her date of birth on February 20th, 2008. And if I want to go ahead and run a report on my birthdays, again, I come back here and I can very clearly see who are my birthdays in July and who are my birthdays in June, who are my birthdays in May, and so forth. And I would be able to print these out as well. So you have the ability to go ahead and report on birthdays also. You may be interested in your enrollment breakdown. This is another area that we're working on improving as well. Right now we give you some very basic information on enrollment, but we have some plans to go ahead and make even more information available for different enrollment type information. So right now what you have access to is you can look at all your cycle years that you have in school and just see a head count to see how many students you have that are listed as PK1, how many are at PK2, how many are in kindergarten, and so forth, with a total of 42 being at this school. You can then go ahead and break them down by days of the week. So on Monday, I have 41 students. On Tuesday, I have 38 students. And Wednesday, 40 students, and so forth. So some pretty basic information. And again, enrollment is actually one of the things that we get asked about a fair amount. And that's an area of the site that we want to go ahead and to build upon. So we have some exciting things coming up with enrollment. And you can also go ahead and run a mailing list. So I go into my mailing list information. I can get all their up-to-date information in here. I'll pull up in just a second, and then I can go ahead and export this. And if I want to go ahead and send out a mailer, whether it's email or whether it's snail mail, whatever the case is, it'll go ahead and run that report. It's taking a little long to load here. Let me go ahead and just refresh it. Try that again, but it will load. Let me break it down by classroom. So in any case, so you have access to a mailing list here as well, and I would be able to go ahead and print that out and do anything that I would want with that. Let me go ahead and move forward here. Tim, did you want to take a couple of questions at all before I continue to move forward? I think Tim's still muted, but I can continue if you want, or I can break for questions.
Hi guys, I'm sorry. I actually took advantage and was copying something for a second. Let's see if there are any other questions, Rob. It's been very slow today. Let's see. Dee says, I have our school profile time is 8:30 to 3:30, but the time that autofills for children is 9 to 3. How can I correct that? Default time.
So the time that you have listed for your school should be the first thing that populates. You'll be able to override that in the student's profile. You have a couple of different options. So let's actually go to our classrooms. Let's go to our primary room here. All right. So you have a school time. You have a school arrival and departure time. So let's say your school day is 8:30 to 4 o'clock. Then you have a classroom time, which may be different from that. And then you have a individual student arrival and departure time, because students may be in before care, they may be in after care, and so forth. And then in the individual classrooms, you have what's called a default attendance time, which if you mouse over this little question mark, it'll give you some information there. But basically, you have the choice to have a classroom's default attendance to pull from either a student's profile or from a classroom's profile. The use case for each would be that if you want each student to have their own unique arrival and departure time with factoring in the aftercare and before care type of things, you then by all means use the student's profile. If you want this to be uniform, where this class is only from this time to this time and everybody should have the same arrival and departure time, you would choose the classroom profile. A lot of schools utilize the classroom for other purposes. So the classroom is a very flexible feature. There's no limitations on the number of classrooms or anything like that. A classroom, in terms of the way the software works, is merely a collection of students. And you can have students be in more than one classroom. So schools use classrooms for things like before care and after care, and maybe specialty programs, music and language and art and things of that nature, PE. So you might have a student who could be in 3 or 4 different classrooms, and in that case, it would probably be best to go ahead and have it pull automatically from the classroom profile. So that way, the student is in the primary room from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and then the aftercare from 3 to 4:30, and in the music program every Thursday from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and so forth. You can be very precise on that reporting if you want. If you're not using the multiple classroom classroom feature, and you just have a physical classroom that, every student is in a physical classroom and that's their one classroom, then you can have it go ahead and pull from here and have the student's arrival and departure time be the primary thing that auto-populates. So the school's arrival and departure time, the main one in the school profile, is the place to start, but it can be overridden by both the student and by the classroom. Any other questions? Or
Sorry, takes a second to unmute. Cheryl Weatherhead has asked, where did you go for that? I'm so sorry, Cheryl. That was a question you were asking in real time, real place. I'm not sure what that was about. And she said to customize allergies. How did you customize allergies?
Yeah, sure. Let me go back to my my school profile here. And so all of the customization takes place in here. So things like I can change the name of my school and things like that. I can change the name of my time zone and my date format. If you want 12 or 24-hour format or the different formats of dates, your school day, start and stop time. Your cycle years can all be edited in here, so you can go ahead and change the names of your individual cycle years if you use different terminology. We strongly recommend that you stay within this framework. You see where it says young community 0 to 18 and 18 to 3 and ages 3 and 4 and so forth. Please be sure, regardless of what you want to call your cycle years, that's irrelevant to us. But it's very important that you stick within this framework because that's the way the scope and sequence is developed. It's very comprehensive scope and sequence, and you need to stay within this framework, otherwise it's not going to work well for you. The custom names is what you're asking about. So this is where we customize things like the absence reason. So if I want to say that the child was absent, because they had the flu or they have a cough or, whatever I want to say here. Assessment levels can all be edited in here. If I want to change any sort of terminology in the assessments or add additional ones. The semantics of the curriculum, the terminology, this doesn't change the way it's structured. This is just some people like lessons or materials or strands or categories or, any types of different ways of referring to curriculum. You can call it anything you would like. Allergies. The common allergies are all listed right here. If you wish to add a new allergy, you would just go ahead and type the name of your new allergy, and then that's available as something that can be reported on as well. And you can just, continue to add those as you see fit. So as many allergies as you would like. And the same goes for the immunizations. The common ones are listed here. You want to add new ones, you can certainly do so. So if you want to delete them, you click on the little X here. So you can customize those however you see fit.
Okay, I've got another question, Rob, from Karen Ricks. She's asking, the classroom days default to Monday through Friday. Is it possible to create a Saturday class?
It is. In your initial setup, they'll ask you the days of the week that your school is open. And if you want to go ahead and add Saturday, or I was talking to somebody recently who had I think a Sunday through Thursday schedule. So yeah, you can customize that any way you want as well. That's done in the initial setup process when you're creating an account. I don't believe we currently have that. It's something you're able to edit, but we should do that. Because I know that it's possible that schools can change from year to year on something like that. So that's not something that's in here, but it should be in here, and we're going to probably be adding that soon. But I know that it's something you're able to do in the initial setup when you're creating a brand new account.
Okay. Let's just see if there's one more. And I don't see one. Rob, why don't you carry on with your presentation?
Okay, sure. So we're going to take a look at, let me see. So we're talking about progress. So how would an administrator be able to go ahead and use this for monitoring progress? And Tim, if you wouldn't mind muting there. Your keystrokes sound like an earthquake. All right. So as a school administrator, there was a slide called "Your Eyes and Ears," and that's a common thing that we've heard from school administrators who really value the, what Montessori Compass is able to do. When you have multiple classrooms, regardless if you have, one classroom or 20 classrooms at your school, you can't be everywhere all at the same time. So it can be, frustrating for a school administrator or a head of school to really, feel like they're not always in the loop on classroom progress and knowing how students are doing and, keeping track of this sort of stuff. You're so busy with all the other aspects of running a school. So Montessori Compass really can be the eyes and ears for an administrator in that regard. And it's wonderful for teachers as well because they can really demonstrate what's going on in the classroom and all the wonderful things that the students are doing and all the, tremendous progress that the student is making. So that can all be very clearly demonstrated for any administrator and, of course, for sharing with parents as well. So the first thing I want to do is go into a student's profile and show how you would go ahead and utilize some of the reporting capabilities in here. So if I am a school administrator or a teacher for that matter, I can go into my students here and I can view all of their records. I'm pretty sure we've talked about some of this in prior sessions, but real quick here, I'll breeze through. We can click on, say, mathematics, and we can click on this particular subcategory, decimal system 0 to 10, and I can very easily see in sequence how the child is progressing in this area of the classroom. The colored stars here indicate the current assessment level. We're using a 3-point scale of presented, working, and mastered on our demo account here, but it could be up to as many assessment points as you want, up to 12, and different terminology. And then I could go in and I can see the individual instances in which this was recorded. So I can see that the red and blue number rods were presented back on March 14th, and that again on May 7th, and so forth. So I can see all of this information, all the record-keeping data, all in one spot here. And I can go on, through the sequence here in mathematics, and these lessons are all nested in subcategories here. If I want to see the entire thing, I can expand all. And now I can get just scroll on down and really see how this individual child is doing in this area of the classroom. And I can move between children here too if I want. So if I want to go down to John, I can see how John is doing. I can go and pick another category and do the same thing with John. So that's how I would go ahead and view at the category level. Then you also have, let me go back to Maria, she has the most demo data. So let's go into and look at the timeline. It would just be a list of every lesson that she's ever had here. So we're looking at the month of July. I can go on down the list here and see all the individual lessons that she's had. I get the name of the category. We have, language arts, subcategory letter sounds. The lesson name would be the sandpaper letters, and then the element. And again, for those that don't know what elements are, these are measurable learning objectives that are associated with a lesson or material. And the scope and sequence that we make available here contains those for you. So you do a search for sandpaper letters, and you have an option to choose from a variety of measurable learning objectives that are associated with this particular material. You will be able to print this out if you were maybe having a parent was coming in for a conference or something, and you want to go ahead and make this information available. Maybe you want to show them everything the child's done in the month of July. You will be able to do that. So this is just viewing it from the student's profile. You can go down and view it at the highest level, and you can also view in the context of the standards as well. So if I want to pick one of these standards categories, for those of you that don't know about our alignment to the Common Core, all of this verbiage is straight from the Common Core. So K.CC.A, that's all straight Common Core verbiage. It's kindergarten, counting, and cardinality. The Common Core contains English language arts, and it contains mathematics. It's been adopted by 45 of the 50 states in the U.S. Highly controversial in Montessori, as Tim can attest to. But what we do is make it real easy so that your teachers can go ahead and be immersed in the Montessori environment all day long. Never give standards a moment's thought. Go ahead and record that a child worked with the material and a corresponding measurable objective, and the alignment takes place behind the scenes without anyone even having to think about it. When the time comes, as an administrator, you wish to go ahead and view a child's progress in context of the Common Core, you can do so. Or if you are compelled by an agency or a state or whatnot to go ahead and report upon that, you can. Or if you wish to share it with parents, you can. Or you can just forget that it's even here. But it all takes place behind the scenes. The way this is done here, you can see that in this particular standard, we're looking at count to 100 by ones and by tens. Again, straight from the Common Core. And we see that this child in this case was, the teacher observed them working with the golden beads. And then this is what was accomplished with the golden beads. This is the measurable learning objective or element. And it's very easy to see that identifies and names quantities 1, 10, 100, and 1,000 using the golden beads would certainly be aligned to count to 100 by ones and by tens. And what's interesting is that the way this alignment was done, it's a very sophisticated alignment. You can see the different materials, the numeral cards and the tens board and the 100 board and so forth, the 100 chain. All of these different materials with their corresponding measurable objectives all meet this specific standard. So it was really interesting as we were doing this project in collaboration with Tim and his team, just how the scope and sequence of Montessori just outpaces the Common Core pretty much every step of the way. And we've really taken into account the cross-curricular alignments as well, whereas a student may be working on a practical life material or lesson or a sensorial material or lesson, and they may be meeting an ELA or a mathematics standard. So that's all been taken into account, as well as students who are working above grade level. That would be traditional grade level. So a upper L student might be meeting standards in 7th or 8th grade and so forth. So this is how, as an administrator or a teacher, I could be able to go here and monitor this information as well. I'm going to toggle on over to my classrooms link here. And let me show you how you would go ahead and monitor progress over here. I can click on my classroom progress, and I can see at a glance. I was in an individual student's profile earlier, and we were just looking at that one student. If I want to look at everybody at the same time, this would be a good way to go ahead and do this. And we have two different ways to monitor kind of everybody at the same time, sort of a thing. So right now we're in our primary classroom. I can go ahead and toggle between these if I would like. And I'm going to pick a category, we'll say mathematics. And now this has given me some pretty basic information. In mathematics in the primary room, we have 165 lessons that are available. And I can see that Maria has been presented 16 of them. And you get a corresponding percentage. And you can go on down the list, and this information may or may not be meaningful to you, depending on what you're looking for. You even get an average at the bottom. But maybe if you have parallel classrooms, maybe you have more than one primary room or more than one lower elementary room, that information might be useful. You might want to know if one class is moving, is making more progress in a certain area of the classroom. That might be something that would be meaningful. So now we're looking at the category. That's a broad category. Now we can drill it down further, say look at decimal systems 0 to 10. So now we went drop from 165 lessons down to 9 lessons. So now we're much more specific, and we can see that Maria, she's doing pretty well. She's had 8 of them. We can see John's had 3, and so forth. We go on down the list, and we get an average. Again, it may or may not be meaningful to you. So now you want to get really specific, and we're going to pick a lesson or material. We'll choose spindle boxes. And now we're looking at an individual lesson or material, and now we get the current highest assessment level and a corresponding average as well. So now we're pretty precise. If we want to take this to the lowest common denominator, I can go ahead and choose what we call the elements or the measurable learning objectives. And now we're as specific as we possibly can be. How is the classroom moving forward with the spindle box material, and specifically demonstrating an understanding of 0 as an empty set. And you can see very clearly how the children are doing and what the average is for the classroom. So this is a really handy tool for a teacher to go ahead and monitor how their own classroom is doing, or for an administrator to monitor how all the classrooms in the school are doing in various areas, whether it's something broad like mathematics, or going all the way down to the actual measurable learning objective level. Let me show you another way you can monitor classroom progress looking at reports. So we have something in here called Classroom Lesson Distribution at a Glance. And I can go ahead and click on this. And you can set your date range. You can go look at all classrooms or just individual classrooms. But what we're doing here is we're just letting you know the number of lessons that are actually recorded for each of these categories. So in mathematics, we've had 207 individual lessons recorded, and you get a corresponding percentage. This is the percentage of all the lessons that have been recorded. So there's been 927 total lessons, 207 of them in math, and there's the percentage. If we click on that, then we can get more specific on the individual subcategories. So again, decimal system 0 to 10, we've had 125. That constitutes 60% of the math. So again, you get that kind of bird's eye view, looking at the sequence here, and you can see kind of, where most of the attention has been in the classroom. If we click on that, then we go into the individual lessons in this area of the classroom. So again, it's similar to some of the other view we showed, but we're looking at the actual times it was recorded. Again, it may or may not be meaningful to you, but we have this data and we try to make as much available to you as possible in terms of being able to know what's been recorded and how things are moving. So we can see that the red and blue number rods were recorded 23 times, had its percentage, and on down the list there. So that's a feature that a lot of people don't even know is available. And it's actually not one that I typically even show in our intro session, but it's another just useful way to go ahead and, we're looking at all the same data, whether you're looking at a student's profile or looking at it from this kind of more bird's eye view of the classroom. It's all the same data. We're just presenting it to you in as many different ways as we possibly can. So that's how you would monitor classroom data and individual data. Next, we can move on to lesson planning. Before I do that, are any questions on any things I've showed so far, or we can talk a little bit about lesson planning. All right, I'm going to move on to our planned lessons tab in our curriculum area. So this would be a way for, obviously, a teacher would want to know, what's on schedule for tomorrow and next week and plan lessons in advance, as far in advance as they wish. But an administrator might want to know that information as well. When you click on the planned lessons tab, not only do you see the lessons that are coming up in the future, but you're also seeing lessons that are not recorded. In fact, for those that have been with us for this past school year, this is a relatively new feature where we used to just tell you what was planned and what was recorded, but now we've changed that to be not recorded and recorded. And the reason is we found that a lot of people were planning lessons in advance, but not sending them to record keeping. So when you plan a lesson in advance, but you don't record it, nothing actually happens. It basically just sits there in limbo, and no record keeping actually takes place. So now, by having everything here that was planned but not recorded, it's much more accurate, and it keeps make sure that you don't forget to go ahead and record these lessons. So I can see today is the 19th. So I see here's a lesson for the 19th, and here's my lessons for next week. So that's pretty easy to understand, the lesson for today and my lessons I have planned for next week. But I also have this one on the 15th. So I had planned this lesson here about the silent E, and I had 9 participants that I wanted to work on this lesson with, but I didn't record it. So it's just sitting there waiting for me to do something with it. I have a choice. I can edit this lesson and change the date, or I can delete it altogether to remove it from here. I can also copy it if it were a recurring lesson. Or I could go back to the 15th on my daily dashboard. So let's go on back to the 15th, and we'll see this lesson here. So there's my silent E lesson right here. It's a planned lesson that I knew I wanted to do today. I see the number 1 in my tab here, so it's very clear. It's telling me I have a planned lesson, but I didn't record it yet. So in a Montessori classroom, obviously being student-directed, you're not going to get to everything you have planned 5 days a week. So we understand that students could take it in a different direction and make it real easy to reschedule it. So if you're not going to get to this lesson today, we strongly suggest that you move it to tomorrow or next week or some other date. Or you just go ahead and delete it altogether. By doing nothing, not only does it just not get recorded for any children, it's just going to continue to sit here on your planned lesson tab, which in and of itself is another strategy. You might want it to sit there because it reminds you that you didn't record it and that you might want to do it some other time. So this is, another way of using it for that purpose as well. So it just kind of sits there as a reminder that you wanted to do it, but you didn't record it. And maybe a week or 2 from now, you can refer back to it and go ahead and plan that lesson, change the date. And here's all my upcoming lessons. So if I'm an administrator, I can toggle between multiple classrooms to see what everybody has planned. And that's an option. I also have the option as an administrator to go ahead and attach myself to the calendar, attach myself to classrooms so I can view it on the calendar. So I'm happen to be logged in as an administrator right now, and I see lessons associated with the primary room. Okay, so I see this lesson here, this math lesson, and this language lesson, and so forth. I'm seeing everything on the calendar here. If I want to go ahead into, say, the lower L classroom, We're going to click on that. And let me go ahead and attach myself here as a teacher. Even though I'm an administrator, I can go and I can edit everything in these other classrooms because I'm an administrator. However, by attaching myself as a teacher in this example, I am now able to see their lessons on my calendar. Some administrators find that to be too noisy, and they don't want to have a calendar that has, all these different lessons on it. So that's a choice that you have. So let me go ahead and I'll plan something for the lower L classroom here. Let me click plan. I'm going to plan a lesson. We'll move on over to toggle over to our lower L lesson, or excuse me, lower L classroom, and we'll just choose any of these lessons. It doesn't really matter. We'll go ahead and put this on the calendar for today, and we'll choose all students, and I'll click create, and now this will be on my calendar because I attached my Excel. So you see, I see my primary room lessons here. See the yellow highlight? And I see now in the lower elementary, here's a lesson planned as well. So if you have, 2 classrooms, it's not that bad. If you have 12 classrooms, maybe it gets too noisy for you. It's a personal preference, whatever you feel works best for you. But this is a good way to go ahead and keep track of what each classroom is planning to do today, so you have a much better understanding of what's going on in advance. Now again, just because they're planned doesn't mean they actually occur. So if you want to know what actually occurred today, what was recorded, you would go into your daily dashboard, and I can just toggle between my classrooms. I choose lower L, I go into lessons, and now I see that, well, there was one planned lesson today, but it didn't get recorded. So if it had 10 lessons in here that were recorded, I would see all of those, and I could view the planned and the unplanned. So administrator can go in each day and see what happened, or they could go in kind of after the fact. They could go in and kind of have that more bird's eye view from time to time, once a week, once a month, whenever you want. But all this information is always available to you. In addition, you can monitor all the observations. So if I go into Maria's profile and I click on Classroom Observations, I can see all the different observations that have been recorded for Maria here. I can print them out, and I can toggle between multiple classrooms. So I can see something like she struggles with mixing up 2 and 5 and 6 and 9, and she chose to spend a lot of time on handwriting today, and I want to work with her on cursive next week, and so forth. So you can really get a real good sense on what's being documented for the children, and you might want to put certain protocols in place there for your school. On each student should have certain observations done. Maybe not every day, maybe it's a couple times a week or whatever, but you can really kind of monitor all that based on how you wish to run your school. And of course, you have all the parent communication comments as well. Maria had a busy day and she was very engaged and so forth. This was shared with the parents today on the 19th. This is one that was shared on the 17th. This is something where a lot of schools we see will put certain protocols in place that it's not going to be practical to record an anecdotal note for every child 5 days a week, but certainly maybe once a week. You make sure that maybe every Friday you have a comment on there that can be shared with the parents. So at least once a week they get something that's private or anecdotal about just their child. That would be a way for administrators to be able to monitor this.
Yeah, let me jump on that just for best practice. There's several issues. First, you definitely want protocols. You can't just turn teachers loose and wish them well and hope it's going to work out all right. And you're going to get resistance from some teachers. You're going to have to guide them. Secondly, there's certain kids that obviously need higher priority of feedback. A child who's new in your school for the first year. That child needs a lot more communication, perhaps, than a child who's been there for 2 or 3 years, or a child who's approaching a decision-making point, where this is the year where the parent may stay or the parent may go. Or obviously any child who for any reason needs extra time and attention. That looks like I just accidentally muted myself for a second. I just said, obviously also you would want to be sure that teachers send these things out for any child who needs extra time and attention for whatever reason. That's it, Rob.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Yeah, so what we do here, I say this all the time, and I'll say it again with Montessori Compass. We're not here to tell you how to how to do things and, the one-size-fits-all approach. The system, we give you a variety of tools here, and you make with it what you will. It adapts to the way that you wish to run your school. So these are some of the things that we've seen other people do, and these are just the different ways to go ahead and keep track of this information. You can also keep track of it monitor it via the classrooms as well. So if I click on, say, the primary classroom, I can click on the classroom observations, and I can see that this note was sent out on the 15th. We learned about the life cycle. This is an observation. This is the classroom observation, which is private. This is not shared with the parents, but you get to see those as well. And then you also get the idea of what we shared with the parents here as well. So you can toggle between them at the classroom level, and you can view them on the individual students level as well. So, and all of your communication is obviously set up here. That's pretty much all that I had, Tim. Really, one more thing would be to show you can monitor in here as well. You can go into your daily dashboard and say go into your primary classroom, and you can view all your observations this way. These are your private teacher observations. This can all be monitored here, and you can also monitor here. So what you might want to do if you were using a daily activity report, which includes this information, these parent communication comments, and if you had that set to go out at, say, 6 p.m. at the end of your school day, you may want to go ahead here beforehand and just take a look at them and, make sure there's no typos and, kind of see what's going on here. That's another way, kind of the eyes and ears, to monitor things in advance. A daily report would be sent out if you have selected the optional daily activity report, and it goes out at whatever your send time is. So you set both whether you want daily or weekly and what time of day you want that to go out, so you can monitor these things in advance. If it's a weekly report, what we've seen some kids or some schools do is put in protocols like, if you're going to do a weekly report specifically, it gives you a little bit more flexibility, because you can go ahead and say, look, I want everyone to have a comment on Friday. And so put all your comments there, even if it's Monday. You're going to write the comment on Monday, just go ahead and change the date, put it on Friday, type in your personal anecdotal comment. It's not being shared on Monday anyway because you have set a weekly report. So what the system does is it doesn't date them, it just shares the comments with the parent. So it's kind of irrelevant the date it was recorded. But by putting them all on a Friday, it's a good way for a teacher to go ahead and make sure that everyone's been touched here, everyone has an anecdotal note, and for an administrator to do the same. And they can toggle between their classrooms and make sure that come Friday at 6 p.m. when these things are actually sent out, that all these boxes are filled up. So everybody has a little comment in addition to the classroom box as well.
Rob, obviously sometimes it's hard for teachers to send things out on Friday. They may say, gosh, what if I wanted to do on Saturday? Can they have the reports go out on another day other than Friday?
No, it's either daily or weekly. So the idea of the weekly is that you have all week to do it. You're observing your children, all 5 of the days that they're there, and or if they're part-time students, however many days are there. But why I reference that, because I've seen some schools implement that program, and that's actually a pretty decent idea if you think about it. From a parent communication standpoint, you have to decide, and Tim, you'll speak more in detail about this. I'm just telling you how the software works, but it seems to me that it's a good idea to determine what your policy is on parent communication, and then go ahead and this is a way to implement that. So if you decide that a daily report maybe is too much, but a weekly report will be really nice. So if you agree that you like the concept of a weekly report, that again, the activity reports look like this: an academic summary, the trackers, and those notes. If you decide that sounds like a good idea, you have all week to build the reports. And the concept of changing the date, and then when you want to record an observational, anecdotal type of a private note for a student, whether it's Monday or Tuesday or Friday, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is, you change the date and put it on the Friday, because it keeps all your notes in one spot. This note does not go out on Monday, it doesn't go out on Tuesday, it goes out on Friday. So that's when you know it's going to go out, and it's just a day of the week to choose to make sure you have them all in the same place. So that would be a way to implement a policy where all 22 students in the classroom get that at least one private note each week.
That sounds great. So, folks, what it all comes down to is basically this as I see it. First, as Rob said, what he and Anita and their team have created is a tool, and it can be used in a lot of different ways. From our perspective at the Montessori Foundation, we think it's important to always remember is that whether your school is a charter school, a magnet school, even a neighborhood Montessori school, an independent school of any type, which is the majority of our schools, all of us are dealing with the same basic set of problems. What we do is different from what parents are familiar with. Parents are looking for information and evidence. They're not necessarily, to use the name of the book, that into you. They may or may not care enough to come to your parent ed. They may or may not care enough to read. They may or may not care enough to read your newsletters. On the other hand, they are definitely looking for information about their child. And you're trying to take the intangible, since you've got no workbook you're sending home, you've got no textbook you're sending home, the kid's not coming home with homework in most cases, you don't have much that helps the parent to wrap their head around what exactly is going on at that Montessori school. One of the things that Montessori Compass will allow you to do if you use it well is to reach out and really help a parent to feel connected to you. And that connection is the most important thing at all. You can have the highest test scores, you can have the fanciest campus and facilities. It's really all about personal relationship. Because what most parents experience pretty quickly in their child's education, in most schools, is that they are in an almost adversarial relationship with the administration. They're so careful not to offend the teacher. That's why they give us so many gifts, and they're trying to almost make sure that we will not do anything to hurt their child. And what we're trying to do is win their trust. We're trying to win their hearts. We're trying to give them something concrete that they can pass on to their grandmother. They can come to your back to school night, and they should. And they'll have a great experience, and they'll come away with memories. But frankly, that memory fades pretty darn quickly. So it takes lots and lots of things to drive home the point that what you're doing is working. And you need something that a parent can remember, can understand, can print out, can keep in a portfolio if they want. And that's scary because how many of us really want to go on record? On the other hand, it's vital. It is so incredibly important. We have to have good records. We have to communicate with parents. And while there's many ways to do it that people have used for a long time, I happen to believe that increasingly it's hard for us to get parents' attention. It's hard for us to make the time to do it. And Montessori Compass is simply a tool. I think it's a really powerful tool. And today, part of what we wanted to get across was how you and I, as school administrators, can use this to not only reach out and communicate, but to keep an eye out on what's going on that's different from the occasional morning where we sit and observe. What we're trying to do is to have a better way of coming up with something tangible. And of course, just because the teacher marks this as having happened doesn't mean that it actually happened. You take what it says and you attempt to see if there's any evidence to back it up. So if the teacher says that Dylan Edwards has actually accomplished a specific goal, at least periodically, you'd want to check to see whether Dylan Thomas shows any evidence of it. And it's easy enough to do that. You go up to Dylan and say, hey, Dylan, I understand that you were working with X. Can you give me a lesson in that? Because I've always wanted to understand how the stamp game worked. I never really understood that. Would you teach me how to do it? And there's all sorts of variations that we use on that and that you can use as part of your ongoing verification and evaluation scheme. So nobody's using this as a tool to try to trap teachers and discover that they're doing things wrong. I mean, why would you ever want to do that? What you want to do is help teachers to do it in such a way that parents get it. They appreciate it, they remember it, and they're increasingly likely to stay with your school. And that's what Montessori Compass does. Let me see if there's any last questions. Judith Martins has asked, Rob, can you let us know how we can add a photograph for each child?
Sure, Judith. You would do that in the student's profile here. So as a school administrator, you have the ability to edit the student's profile. And I'll go down here and I'll click on the edit button. And just as if you fill in all the other information, you can just simply upload a photo over here. So you choose a file from your desktop and go ahead and upload it, and it'll be in there. One quick side note on photos. We get a lot of support tickets about people that have photos that are upside down or sideways and things like that. We plan on having some photo editing capabilities in here at some point. It's not a real high priority for us. We have some other items related to classroom management that we want to work on first. However, when you take a photo with your phone or your iPad, and you take it where if you picture the iPad being upside down, and you take the photo, it may look like you have it right side up, but it's really upside down. And that's most often the case when you post a photo like this in the student's profile or you post it in the photos. If you go ahead and just change the orientation of it on your desktop or laptop prior to uploading it, it'll display correctly. But that's where you put your photos in.
Right, and essentially everybody's computer should have some kind of software that allows you to do at least crude photo editing. Most of the iPhoto and various other kinds of publications do that.
Yeah, you don't even need to use anything all that sophisticated. See, what happens is, I guess this is one of the real common support tickets that we receive a bit, like related to student profile photos and so forth, where I put Maria's photo in and she's upside down. That 9 times out of 10 is because I took it with my iPhone or my Android phone and it was upside down when I took it. And when I even display that on both Windows and Mac OS X, both display things right side, will basically fix the orientation for you kind of automatically, but they're not really fixing it. They're just displaying it for you. They're basically flipping the child's head around, but it's not really fixed. So in any case, if you see that happen, that's usually the easiest solution. It's just to go into, on a Mac, you would use Preview and whatever you're using on Windows and go ahead and rotate the child around and you'll be fine.
Ayula Wasi has asked a question. How do I get the Montessori Compass in conjunction with my operating software? And I think I can answer that one. Ayula Montessori Compass is simply an online program. You don't need to download anything to your computer. You basically just need to have a system that meets certain minimal criteria. Rob, can you explain what the criteria is?
Sure. High-speed internet and an up-to-date web browser. Excuse me. Coughing right into our microphone. Wow, that earthquake. All right, yeah. So it's a web-based application, and it works on any web-enabled device, whether you have a Mac, PC, iPad, Android tablet, iPhone, Android phone, whatever. Basically anything with an up-to-date web browser. We support all the major web browsers, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari. Just make sure they're up to date. A lot of times we see support tickets from people that are using maybe an older Windows computer and it has an older version of Internet Explorer. Just update it, and chances are it'll fix the problem. There's a lot of issues that are related to browsers that are out of our control because there's just so many different browser versions. They update them, every couple of weeks almost sometimes. So we support the latest ones. Browser upgrades are always free. So go to Microsoft or go to Firefox or Google Chrome. By the way, Google Chrome is my personal favorite. I would always recommend that because it works great on both Macs and PCs. And it updates itself constantly, and you're always using the latest, greatest stuff. So I just would highly recommend that. It works really well with Chrome.
Good. Thanks, Rob.
Yep. Tim, one other point
Sure.
to add on there is that you don't need. People ask us about a mobile app. You do not need a mobile app for Montessori Compass. It works beautifully on an iPad. When we built the software from the beginning, we had iPads in mind and touchscreen devices in mind. So you can just use either Safari or Chrome on your iPad or Chrome on your Android tablet, or if you're using one of the Windows tablets, the Internet Explorer, and it'll work very, very well on those mobile browsers. And it works, reasonable enough on a phone as well. It's obviously a smaller screen, but you have access to everything. You can actually do record keeping. We've seen schools that even use you can do record keeping using the voice. You can have either, if you're using an Android phone, Google has a really great voice activated feature where you can actually, instead of typing, you could speak into it. So the text to speech. So there's a lot of different ways to use it on mobile devices. So it works very well.
Exactly. Of course, Mac has that too on the iPhone and the iPad, and even on the desktop now. So this is becoming increasingly common. And for those of you that haven't tried what Rob just said, for me, that's how I'm doing it. Increasingly, every email I'm sending out, I am talking into my iPhone or my iPad. You got to double check it before you hit send, because sometimes the voice recognition software misunderstands what you're trying to say, and the stuff can look pretty odd. But as long as you do editing before you send it, it can often save you an awful lot of time. And Rob, if you're taking observation notes and you want to speak quietly into your phone while class is on, rather than typing, they can always go back and they can re-edit it, right?
No, sure. You can just kind of speak something real quietly, maybe kind of put your hand over your phone to kind of back out, any sort of background noise or whatever. But, you just have to play around with it and see what works best for you. Some people are really good, typing with their thumbs on their phone, and some people are not. And, you can use your voice, laptop, a tablet. But, I mean, really, probably the best thing to have in the classroom is, if you're able to, would be a tablet, just because it's a nice size. It looks really good on an iPad side, the full screen iPad. The smaller ones, obviously, the iPad minis, certainly will work fine, but you're just getting into a smaller screen. So it's, personal preference, what screen size you prefer. But, it works, very well on touchscreen devices. And we've really limited the number of steps, the daily dashboard, which is the hub where the action takes place. Not a lot of cumbersome, unnecessary steps to do. You don't even have to click the save button. I mean, you go ahead and you tap on something and it saves automatically for you. So very friendly on touchscreens.
Good. So let me just double check that there's nothing else. I see one last comment, which is from, hang on just one second. Oh, it's from Shelley Carrotas. Shelley says, thank you for this webinar. We're using Montessori Compass for this school year, and I know that what we've learned from the webinar is going to make the transition much easier. It's got so many capabilities. I'm looking forward to working with it. That's a nice way to end the conversation. I see lots of old friends out there, including my colleague Lawrence Speed from Newgate. I want to thank all of you who have stuck with us through the series of 5, whether you listen to them live or whether you listen to them online. I should also mention that the webinar we recorded on Tuesday, the sound and the images got screwy. Something apparently about the way it was recorded. I think I've got it fixed. I'm going to upload a new version of that same recording, and I'm going to do that same process with this one to make sure that the recording is good, and then I will send you all an email telling you again where to see hear and see all of the recordings we've done. And then finally, this is not the end. Number one, Rob, Anita, and I are beginning a new series of webinars, the exact same topics, but always completely different and spontaneous, pretty spontaneous. And we'll be starting that right after the International Congress. Did I just go silent for a second? I'm sorry. I just wanted to say this is not the end. Rob and Anita and I are beginning another series of webinars right after the International Montessori Congress ends in Oregon. So in early August, you'll see that we'll be doing 2 a week. Also, the Montessori Foundation, hopefully with Rob and Anita as well, will begin to develop another series of free webinars on topics that we think will help teachers from around the various pieces of the Montessori family internationally on specific issues like getting ready for the new year and normalizing the class in 5 easy steps and all those other good pieces of information that we're sharing. If there's something that you do really well and that you wish you could have an opportunity to share using the Montessori Foundation's system, we're more than happy to talk. We're anxious to have collaborators, and we just really appreciate all of you giving your time and attention to this. So without any further ado, I'm going to say adieu and thank everyone for joining us for the series of 5 webinars and for today's session. Rob, Anita, thanks for your time.
Thanks
for delivering such a great product. Thank you so much.